Hello, trampoline friends. Welcome to Trampoline Insight. I'm Nuno Marino alongside Stephen Gluckstein, and today we have episode 22. We're going to continue a little bit more about education.
That's right. So we're going to continue the routine progressions that we did part one, where we started at the American level 8, went through the level 9, and then we stopped just when we were about one or two doubles in our routine. So we're going to continue where we left off. We're going to talk about maybe some other philosophies that start to change as we get into harder routines. And we're also going to be looking at another document that Nuno Marino shared with us. His is a little bit more updated. Like I stated in part one, these are the routines that I've used
I had
about 2
some
years
time. I had
ago
some time to work on it.
during a little bit of quarantine, a little stay at home time. So we'll go over and he and I will talk about why we might do some different routines, right? So
Absolutely.
let's check out my document where we left off first, and then we'll jump to Nuno's. So here we are, just about where we left off. This is where we start doing two doubles. And honestly, you'll see there's no difficulty at the bottom. I mean, I could add this up, but like we had said in the first, at this point, we're not going on difficulty, right? In fact, sometimes you might take a step back in difficulty to really introduce a new double connection, or just, a new double in a different place, right?
It's funny. It's funny. Remember on part one we talked a little bit about this, and then when I was updating my routines, there is a part there that is very noticeable, how the difficulty goes down a little bit, so we can add some connections, and then it builds up again to a whole new level of difficulty. We'll get there later.
Yeah. So so I really should have update this document, put the difficulty here just to show that. But so this is this two double routine. It was level 10 many years ago. Right now, this is a level 9 routine, honestly. And I'll put the double back pike first and the double back tuck last. At this point, they're doing 1 and 3s, the flat backs and double fronts, and they're probably at this point, because they have two of their hardest doubles in their routine, the odds are they have the half out. It just might not be ready to connect yet, but at this point they're probably doing half out to a throw mat with no spot, maybe doing a connection off of the mat. And so you'll see highlighted, this is a similar piece, the back pike, Rudy, back tuck, running straight, double back tuck, similar routine from the last one that starts back to quarter Cody and ends in double back. Right, so we just taught them a new double back pike. So usually, again, my philosophy is we put that hardest skill usually first. Nuno, I know you said we put the double last. So we talked about that in the last progression. So let's take a look at Nuno's document and see where he's at when he starts around with two doubles. All right, so Nuno, here we have, let's see, which routine. So we have over here the back to quarter Cody routine that starts with a double back tuck. So the next two double routine right here is this one, optional 2, level 9. Why don't you talk us through how you introduce this routine and the steps from the last routine to this one?
So basically, it's exactly what you were saying. We grabbed that ending of the Cody one, and we try to keep it the same. And I just introduced a half out there, but honestly, in between these two routines, I usually play with the double pike at the end. You put the double pike in the beginning for them to do, right? I usually do this optional 1 for level 9, and I play with the double pike at the end, because then we start preparing it also for optional 3. So I got to kind of prepare optional 2 and 3 at the same time. And it's a little bit of what you were saying. These athletes may be advanced on the doubles and still catching up on the half out. So optional 2 is not ready to do yet, but I'm building already the ending of optional 3 with a double pike at the end. So I kind of build both all at the same time. But what the routine that I like for level 9 is that optional 2, because it has the maximum DD for level 9, which is at 7-1. And it's, as you guys can see, half out tuck, back tuck, brainy tuck, full Rudy, back pike, brainy pike, back straight, brainy straight, double tuck. And those backs and brainies in all my routines can be switched around. That's not the most important thing here. The most important thing is, for me, it's the structure of the doubles. There will be later certain positions that I like Bereni straights at 9 skills. I think it's more important at that time, or even Bereni straights coming up from a Bereni, from a double, for example, in the connection. But here in this routine, I really don't care where the backs and Berenis are, as long as they are connected, there are stable connections, right? So this is the routine that I use for level 9 as my standard. That doesn't mean that they can't be
So,
level 9 with optional 1, right? But the
mhm.
optional 2 is the one that I use as my standard, because it
So
has the maximum difficulty allowed.
let me ask you a couple questions, right?
Yes.
So what wouldn't it be more beneficial and easier for the athlete to score higher if they put back full and then a Branny and then back pike and then Rudy in spot number 7 and didn't have that connection?
And that's a possibility. That's a possibility. I have nothing against that. If you go up a little bit, I kind of do that already on level 8, and then whenever it starts optional 1, which you guys can see at the end of level 8 on optional 4, which is preparation for level 9, I merge the full and the Rudy. That's the first time they merge the fulls and the Rudis. And then I enjoy having them then together all the time, mainly because I'm going to use them a lot in the future. But again,
Right.
I think, like you said, to optimize the score, if they do it better separately, why not have it separately on that routine? It's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. I have nothing against it being separate.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer it together because it starts prepare another connection of that routine that will go into the future, that I think it's important to be together. That's
Yeah.
all. But
Introduces some twisting to twisting
correct,
combinations, right? Eventually they'll
correct,
have Rudy out to full, or they'll have, Rudy to half and half out or something, so no, I get
correct.
it. My second question is, so the half out tuck is in the routine before the double back pike. Do you teach the half out tuck before the double back pike?
I teach them at the same time, actually, and most of the times they actually do double pike before they do half out tuck. But when they go in the
Yeah.
routine, they go FL pike tries to go before, or the double pike goes at the end of that optional 1 that starts with a Cody and then with the double, and then I put the double pike like we talked before in preparation for
Hmm.
the optional 3. But it's kind of like a mix. They all go together at the same time. I work on them together at the same time, and then some athletes develop the doubles easier, some athletes develop the half outs easier. So, but they only get to
Yeah.
this 7-1
It's
whenever those are done. Yeah.
it's funny, like as we're talking about this, I'm starting to like envision in my head some athletes doing these routines, and it's funny because I think about like someone who's maybe 8 or 9 years old, they're not having enough power to do double back pike. And then I think about maybe the latecomers who are level 9 at 13 years old. And this would, for me, like double back pike, would absolutely be in that routine a lot faster. So I think a
Exactly.
lot of it has to do with the athlete's size, the athlete's
Correct.
age, the athlete's power and strength, right?
And
Um,
I'll be honest with you, when I was updating these routines, that was exactly the thought that I had a lot. So because these routines are built for an entire program, and you guys can see, right? So I have the compulsory that they would use for that level, plus the options that would do during that level, and which ones prepare already for level 10, everything, right? So, but when you get to youth elites there, you'll see that some of them might stay on that standard, some of them might not be on that standard, some of them might be older and still doing the routine that I thought it was the standard for 11, 12. It really depends on the athlete that you have in front of you, and
mhm,
how progressed are they in this development, right? So in the end, yes, those are the routines that I would advise for level 9, but that doesn't mean that older athletes shouldn't be doing those
yeah,
evolutions the same, right? And of
right.
course they're gonna do some connections easier than others because they're already stronger, taller, all those things. So they'll be easier for them to do other connections. It's normal.
Absolutely. So let's move on here to the next routine. This is 3 doubles, and so while we're on this document, we'll stay here, and then we'll bounce back to my document. So the next routine that you have here is half out tuck to double back tuck to Branny straight, and then that connection back full Rudy, back tuck Branny tuck, back pike Branny pike, like we do in swing time, right? And that you have a lot of new athletes, and then finishing with that double back pike.
Yep.
Do you all right, so this is a 7-7. All right, so now let's take a look
Which
at
you cannot compete at level 9 anymore because it's already past your difficulty. That's why I wrote at the
all
bottom
right,
preparation
yeah.
for level 10,
All right.
right? So it
So
has.
let's 3 doubles. Let's take a look here. at right. So here's my other two doubles that I have. I have half out pike starting and then double back pike. And the reason why I have half out pike is because
You teach
I
half out
teach the
pike
half out
first.
pike before the half out
Correct.
tuck.
Yeah.
Um,
Which again, I think it's important for people to understand that we don't teach the same, but it's okay. It's okay. It's not, oh, one person does it wrong or the other one does it right. It's not,
mhm,
many people teach half out pikes first. I see a pro in teaching pike first, but for now in my program, I did not need it to start with the pike to
mhm,
not having anyone twisting earlier or something like that.
yeah.
So I just enjoy starting with the tuck before. But
And
again, nothing against starting with a pike.
and I wouldn't say it's an absolute law, written in stone
Mm-hmm.
that I teach pike too. I would say honestly, and honestly with the group that migrates up, sometimes I'll change every year when it comes
Exactly.
time to those whatever group of 5 or 6 athletes that are learning half out that year. Depends on their age, depends on how strong they are. Sometimes I'll teach half out tuck first. Sometimes if they're a little bit very nervous and still a little bit immature, but they have the talent and the abilities to do the half out, but they're still mentally a little immature, then I'll say, okay, no, we need to stick to the pike. So
Exactly.
here's the routine that I'll initiate. Or start with the three doubles, and they'll start with the half out. But I have, instead of the double tuck second, I put that fourth. Sometimes, honestly, I'll do half out pike, double back tuck, and then later on in the routine, I'll put back layout, back full. So it's another two back skills. So
Mm-hmm.
then that kind of evens it out. And the reason why I do that is that the athletes can get used to doing a routine where they need to keep their height for three doubles. However, they don't need to be able to connect double to double yet. And honestly, that first time, that first double to double connection is quite scary, right? Sometimes they can gainer, sometimes they lean back, sometimes they start to overthink and they lose their timing a little
Absolutely.
bit. We get there, but I think we just take maybe a few other interim steps.
And
Putting
I
that
think
double
it's
back.
totally okay. I think it's, if I have an athlete that needs more steps, I'll go to these routines too. I have not a problem with that.
Hmm. And then here we'll have Brandy double pike. Some athletes, kind of like we said at the last one, sometimes I'll teach 1 and 3 Rudy ball out. Depends on the athlete. At this point, they're all doing 1 and 3 Rudy ball out as a drill for their Rudy
Rudy
outs.
outs. Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not 1 and 3 Rudy ball outs, sometimes from the quarter Rudy ball outs at this point. But if the athlete can do a really nice 1 and 3 Rudy ball outs and their double back pike maybe isn't as strong or they're not as high at the end, that's a substitution.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another 3 double routine that we'll do. And again, this might be a step back. Actually, no, it's not a step back because the half out tuck is worth more than double back tuck. But they'll do the 2 half outs and then ending with the double backs. And honestly, these 2 routines are just about the same difficulty. I think the first one with the double back is maybe 1/10 less. I think
One tenth
just
less. Yeah.
eyeballing all the skills here, they look almost all the same.
Mm-hmm.
However, this one, the second one, has a much more potential, much more of a foundation, right? So I would
Mm-hmm.
prioritize the second routine over the first routine. That's if the athlete has, their half outs good to go. If the athlete doesn't have half outs that well, we'll stick with the first one. So let's bounce back to yours. Let's see what next 3 doubles we have. Let me just make sure. Oh, so yeah. So something that to me isn't worthwhile to compete is the half out double back and
Yeah.
finishing double back pike, that routine, because the athletes are going to lose maybe a lot of height, a lot of deductions on the
Mm-hmm.
2 doubles when they can separate them and optimize them. However, they're going to have to be practicing this routine in order to be ready to connect to the 3
See,
doubles. So before,
can
go
you go
ahead.
back to that 3 doubles? So the only thing I would personally change here would be putting a Brenny straight after the double tuck, because I think it's an easier connection with the Brenny, and for the future is better. Just me
Yeah,
personally, okay. I don't. Again, it only depends on
I
the
agree.
athlete.
Yeah.
But I just think it makes a big difference when it comes from a double and having a Brenny straight and changing the rhythm there. But again, that was when I was updating these routines. That was the only thing. I don't care where the Brennies go, except on these little things. After the double, the first double is mainly having a Brenny straight, because it's very easy. I think here, if you have a Brenny tuck coming with that speed, it's very easy for that athlete to keep the
To
head down
rush.
and boom, and
Yeah.
going into a 1 and 3 or a half out with unintentionally, for example. And I
Hmm.
think a Brenny straight limits that possibility. That's why.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you 98%. And normally I would. The reason why I put it is the Brenny straight usually comes ninth skill, whether it's going to be Brenny straight double A, eventually Brenny straight half
That
half,
is
and it
true.
allows that athlete to stretch for the last skill if they're not strong enough
and
to really
and and I
push.
like
So,
it too. I like it too, and that's
wish
what
we
I
could
said
do
in the
two Brenny
beginning.
straights.
I know, right? I wish you could do two Brenny straights. And like I said in the beginning, in my routines, the Brenny straight comes from the top and then it goes at the bottom because it's going to be used a lot more at the bottom after they understand those connections for sure.
All right, so let's take a look at the four doubles, which is your optional four for level 9 or
Hmm.
preparation for level 10, right? And you have the
For me,
standard
that's
three
definitely a level 10.
doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the standard, right? Three doubles to swing time or Ross drill, right? That Brandy back, full Rudy back, Brandy to double back pike.
Yep.
The difficulty is 8-5. And at this point, I feel like the difficulty is almost still irrelevant, right?
Uh-huh. I
Because
agree.
they're going to, at this level, most of the kids are either doing their 7-7 or 8-5, right? The difficulties are going to be changed by half a point. And at no point are you ever, I wouldn't say ever, but really honestly, are you ever strategically going for difficulty at this level? No, you're still in the developmental stage, right? At no point
So
you're like, you know what, that other athlete was only doing 7-7. Let's pull out that 8-2 or 8-5, right? You
so
know.
let me just add one thing because I totally agree with the routine that you had with the both half outs and no double in the beginning, in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be that 8-5 with no double. And I usually have in between routine there that goes exactly like you have half out back half out and then the rest of that routine. Does that make sense? So I take the double
Yep.
out and do, but that would be not a routine. I wouldn't compete that routine. I would do that in practice until they are ready to do the 8-5, but I usually have it in the middle. And it's interesting, these questions of timing. I actually have an athlete that is going exactly right through this progression right now, and that
Mm-hmm.
she's close to connect the three doubles, but I'm still having her do only the half outs with the back tuck in the middle, and then the rest of the routine with the double pike in the end, preparing already that 8-5. But it's interesting that I did not write it there. I might add it in the future. It's just I thought the
Like a
layout was so
little.
pretty that if I had to put one more routine there, it was going to mess up my layout. So I thought
You're so OCD with your lines and numbers.
I am. I think it's
So,
noticeable on this page.
before, because I think the next routine you have for level 10. Oh no, it's the same. It's the
It's
same
the same. So
routine.
yes,
Yes. So
because
then the
that would be
next
the first one that I would compete level 10.
yeah. So then the next you have is the 5 double. So let me jump back because I think
Correct.
I have another 4 double routine. Right. So I have half out back. And honestly, this routine has 4 doubles with no double to double connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say this is honestly a normal routine that I'll teach because that double back in the middle is so awkward, right? At
Mm-hmm.
this point, you'll see this
But
next
I think
routine
it's a
is
good
more
training
like,
routine, like you have there. You have written on the
yeah,
top training routine. I think it's a good training
did I
routine.
write
It's
that?
good for them.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right
Yeah.
there, training routine. I
Yeah.
think it's important for them to connect these things in training. I wouldn't compete that
Hmm.
as well, but I think it's important for them to connect that in training. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this builds their confidence and they say, oh, I did an optional with 4 doubles, instead of 3.
Exactly.
And then honestly, this is more of what it looks like to me. And I'll put it fourth, and I'll tell you the pros and the cons. And the good thing is that it minimizes how many doubles they're connecting, right? Like we said, the more doubles you start to connecting, the more risk there is for over or under rotating a double, right? The more risk of not getting dizzy, but getting more lost, I guess, if you can in the
Yeah, of
bed.
course.
Um, However, the downside is you only at this point you really only know 4 or 5 doubles. So you know one of the fourth hardest skill how to do. We're putting fourth skill, right? So you're not as high, not as strong as you
Hmm.
would be second skill. Um, so yeah, I mean this would be the first 4 double routine, and I would opt for putting it fourth before putting it second. How long it stays there? Probably not, honestly, not that long, but it's an introduction
It really
to
it really depends on the
doubles.
athlete. I would say it depends on the
Yeah.
athlete. Some athletes might need it easier this way, and then you just move on to the next
Yep.
one. Yeah.
And then boom, here's our standard 4 double routine, right? The 3 at the beginning, ending with a double back pike, or again, that 1 and 3 Rudy ball out in the parentheses. All right, so now that we went all over through the 4 doubles, let's jump to the next step that we have for you. We have 5 doubles, which is, I feel like, pretty common, right? I feel like at this point, and you know what? It's fun. I'm gonna say something. You tell me how you feel. I see this routine and I'm like, okay, this is standard. Everyone should do this routine, right? This is important. And then like, I get tired of it, like, and I see something different and I'm like, oh my God, like why would you put that skill? That's not optimizing that routine. And then I'm like, well, it's kind of fun to watch. And I'm like, and then I get it to my next thought. Well, I'm happy I get to see it, but it's not my athlete having to do a weird, funky routine, where they end with half out pike and start with their double back pike or something at this level.
I think the biggest problem here is that this routine judges very well. That's the biggest problem. So it kind of becomes like a compulsory for this level. They get
right
here,
and
like
right
that optional 2 right there. And I think it's just easy for everyone to go to that routine. Now, I think the biggest change here, and if you look at your routine and my routine, is where you put the backs and the brainies, right? I start with the straights and with the pikes. You start with the pikes and with the straight.
Go to the straights.
Again,
yep.
It does not matter. I could probably have athletes that would start with the pikes and with the straights. I probably think that this was probably one of the good routines to start putting the brainy straight at the end, or as well before the double A. I think brainy straight double A, it's actually a really good connection to do, right? So I just think it becomes standard because it scores so well. That's all.
Yeah. And I think the judges are expecting it. The judges, after back tuck, brainy tuck, the judges are expected to see in a back pike, brainy pike in the compulsory. So you have optional 3 here, right? That 1 and 3 Rudy ball out.
So it's the same thing without the double A. So if someone has some trouble doing double A, they can always do the same difficulty with the 1 and 3 Rudy ball out. I can tell you that I don't use that a lot, but it's good to have a plan B all the time. So,
right. Yes. And so there's more. Let's see. So this is all the level 10 routines you have on this document. And then we get to the elite level, right?
Correct.
So let me see. Let's pop back over to my document. Let's take a look at 5 doubles training routine. And right here, this is the same routine, almost the same difficulty, right, that we had before. And you'll see down here is the routine, and up here is training routine. And basically, the athletes are coming from this routine where they just learned how to do 3, and putting this double back pike here allows the athletes to do routine again with more doubles without having to connect them. And I'll be honest, I wrote this down. I don't know if I really honestly do this too much. Maybe if the athletes are super timid and really scared about changing the routine and adding another double. But it's like I said, it's a training routine, not ideal especially to go from branny to double to branny in the middle of a routine that already has a lot of doubles.
But I think, Steven, I think it follows the logic that you were doing before. So it's nothing wrong with it. It follows the logic. You introduce one double there in the middle. Exactly. It's an interim step before you put it on fourth skill. It's not a problem.
And that philosophy is just adding a double without adding a double connection, and then introducing the connection. And then here we go, that 4 double start to Brannies, Fulls, and Rudies. And I had asked you, why do you put them together? And the answer is, once you get to this routine right here, you can't separate them unless you're going to do double back Rudy, which is
exactly
dangerous. Not dangerous, but dangerous for your score, right?
For sure.
Right. So, and we talked a little about this right here. This routine that we talked about, that 9-1, that is all their doubles at this point, right? So at this point, if this athlete is starting to do this routine, they should have already been starting to do Rudy outs with a spot into a pit.
Correct.
And by the time they can do this routine, that Rudy out should already be on a throw mat without a spot. Maybe not ready to connect, but on the throw mat.
It should be.
Would you agree with that timing?
I agree completely, and I would dare to say that need to be tuck and pike both done at that time.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree. I used to do a lot more pike, but at this point they have the double half out tuck and the half out pike, so they're very familiar with that feeling. It's
Yeah.
the only thing that's changing is the Rudy at the end. So again, I'll teach the Rudy out pike first, but the tuck maybe comes the week after. Like we do pike, we take a couple days off, we learn tuck, right? And then we go back and forth, alternating days. And so here, let me ask you a question, right? So I'll do the Rudy out, teach the Rudy out pike and Rudy out tuck first, and I believe you do as well. But there are a lot of people that will teach the full Branny pike before the Rudy out. So let me know what are your thoughts on teaching full Branny versus Rudy out pike first?
So I teach Rudy
Rudy
out
out.
first too. I teach the Rudy out first. I see this is a conversation that actually we have with a lot of coaches, because for some reason it seems that with the techniques that people are using today, these athletes have an easier way to acquire the full brainy, at least in the United States, to acquire the full brainy than the Rudyards. I see more people doing full brainies than Rudyards, and whenever we talk to the coaches, oh, they just like the full brainies better, and we start with them first. And again, I have really nothing against. I think you can start both ways. It's like in my opinion, it's like two paths that go to the same place. If you don't forget the second part somewhere, right? If we start with Rudyards and then we forget the full brandies because we don't like them, we already lost a couple of skills. If we start with the full brandies and then we forget the Rudyards, we already lost a couple of skills. So I don't really care which one the coaches start with, but then they need to go back and redo the other ones. I think that's the most important part. Now, the reason why I start with the Rudyards, I start with the Rudyards probably because my coach started with the Rudyards with me. Okay, that's probably reason number one. But reason number two is because us to learn the full Brenny, I start with a harder one to give them more time doing that skill, so it prepares them better for the future. That's the only reason, honestly,
I think
because
I
I
think well, I
see
think
I
there's
see like the
another
Rudyards are
reason.
harder to connect there.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's also easier to learn because they're familiar with the timing to kick out for the half out. They feel 1-2 open, 1-2 open. Right now, 1-2
Yeah,
open
yeah.
Rudy. Right, so they're very familiar. And I'm a believer that you do no twist before a half twist, and then half twist before a full, and then a full and before a full and a half. So before the full Branny, I will teach the Arabian 1 and 3 to flat back, so they have
Yep.
a familiar feeling and a confidence that they know they can twist in the first flip before they start doing a full in the first flip.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's about a timing thing. They at this point they don't know the timing for the full Branny, and it could be you can like you said you can start doing the drills, but they know the timing for the kick out, and the Rudy out can be acquired much earlier than the full Branny. You're going through all of the drills for the full Branny and then putting into the routine.
So I agree with that, and that's the reason why I teach the Rudyards first. But I've noticed that when the kids when they do the progressions for the full Branny, it's just easier for them to just do half turn in the end to feet than actually a 1.5 in the end, like the Rudyard. So the Rudyard has a way
Yeah.
harder landing than what the full Branny has, right? So
Yes.
that's the feedback that I hear, because we do so many clinics. This is the feedback that I keep hearing. Is just after they do the first initial full, then it's just a Branny in the end. They have a lot more spotting in the end they can do on a full Branny than what they can do on the Rudyard. So it
Right.
in my opinion, and I agree with you, it's easier for them to learn the first Rudyard because they already have the timing of the half out. But I think it's much harder for them to connect the Rudyards than what it is to
Oh
connect
yeah.
the first full Brannies,
Oh
because
yeah.
it comes only from a half turn instead of 1.5. And for me, that tells me that they need to do more, right? So I start with the Rudyard so they can finish that 1.5 and have more under their belt. Whenever they go for the full Brannies, the routines kind of fall in place together, because both skills have the timing that they need to be ready. And but I agree with you. It's much easier for them to do the first Rudyard because they know the timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So let's jump back to look at the next step of the next routines. All right, so here we have Nuno's next document, Youth Elite to Senior Elite of routines. We have here Youth Elite 11, 12. Nuno's documents are a little bit more organized by level. He had some
You'll get to
quarantine
yours.
time. I'll get to
You'll
mine.
get to yours.
I spent my time on quarantine making some statistics for world age groups and world championships and ages. So I'll get there. I enjoyed doing that. I feel like I didn't have much time to. I honestly still didn't get enough time to finish it. But all right, let's take a look.
But
So
don't worry, Steven, because I'm looking at optional one and I already see a mistake, so I'm gonna have to update it again.
Perfect. All right, so now we're even because you made one little mistake, and because my document isn't updated, we're even. Perfect. All right.
It's okay.
So
Yeah.
we have Rudy out pike, back tuck, and then those three doubles that we've been doing for a while now: half out pike, double back tuck, half out
Yeah.
tuck, to back straight, and then you have back
And then
pull. So
should
why don't
be
you say the
Brenny
last six
straight.
here? Yeah, Brandy
It
straight.
should be Brenny straight, full Brenny pike, double pike. So the Rudy doesn't go into that routine.
Gotcha. Okay. So the only thing, and you have this across your optionals 1, 2, and 3. The second skill has back tuck, and the same reason that you kind of put Brandy straight in the places to stretch. For these routines, I'll usually put back pike second skill. Is there a certain reason that you put back tuck
So
second?
the reason why I put back tuck is because the next skill I would like there would be a double tuck. So it forces them to have a takeoff a little bit shoulders more in front so they can do the back tuck. Otherwise they over rotate super easy.
Mm-hmm.
So in training I put all backs there, but then
Mm-hmm.
whenever I put a routine I like the back tuck because as you guys can see on optional 4 it will be Rudy out, double tuck, Rudy out, and if there is a back tuck or a takeoff for a back tuck there, it will be easier for them to connect the double tuck, in my opinion. But again, I have nothing against to be a back pike. I think back pike is hard enough for them to do a good double tuck too. Back straight,
Right.
the other hand, too
No.
easy to allow mistakes to happen.
Right. You can let the hips out. You can lean back. Right.
Yeah.
I think we can both agree that back layout is probably the worst of the three options to start putting.
Correct.
All right, so let's take a look at where.
You know what, Stephen? I compare that, and we see this a lot. Whenever we see, for example, people doing thrift pike, half tuck, thrift tuck instead of half pike, right? And I like the half pike, right? But people put the half tuck, getting ready the half thrift already in the future. So because of the takeoff, so I connect that back tuck a little bit with that. So that's the reason why I put back tuck and not other. But I don't think it makes that big of a difference. I don't think it's a make it or break it, for sure.
All right, so at this point, they have multiple front double skills we introduced to the Rudy out. And actually, you said you teach the Rudy out tuck first, but you have the Rudy out pike in the routine first. So
I was wondering when you're gonna ask that. So I do think for the connection, the pike is much easier than the tuck. I do teach the tuck first, but I don't start connecting, or I connect them both at the same time, but they only go into the routine whenever the pike is ready. And then whenever the pike is ready, then the tuck is ready fairly soon too, because it has been growing at the same time as the pike. But I usually start the pike on the routines first.
So
And
let
I
me
was
ask you a
waiting for
question.
that question.
As a senior elite, right? And you tell me there's certain skills I feel like that are common, especially in like men, trampolinists. There are certain skills that just like people don't like, right? Once they become senior elites, they don't like to do Rudies from their feet to feet, right? A lot of
I
people
know.
don't like to do double back tucks and double back pikes once they have half halves and half Rudies and full pulls and Millers and Miller plus
For
and half
sure.
drift,
I
right?
was one of those.
Was Rudy out tuck on your list? Because it was not high on my likable list of skills. I did it. I just really didn't enjoy doing the skill.
Same thing with me. I did it, but I did not enjoy it. And I only did it when I really had to, when I got older.
All right. Synchro probably, right?
I know, because the timing of the tuck is so fast due to the way we do drifts and the speed that we do drifts, that if we don't touch and kick out right away, then the timing, it can promote some lost skill syndrome that no coach and no athlete wants, right? So that's the reason why we don't really enjoy it. And I remember in my time, I remember when I had to do without tucks at that level when I was senior. Whoo, boys, those were tough. Those were tough.
I thought so. I had a feeling. All right. So at this point that they have a lot of front doubles, I'll start to introduce and teach with a skeleton. where all of the back skills will be back pike. So they have to reach, they have to stay forwards on their toes, like you had said with the back tuck. Otherwise, if they're leaning back, they're not going to be able to hit that pike position.
Not gonna be able to.
And so basically what I'll do from here is I'll start to fill in the doubles, right? So this routine right here, Rudy out, back pike, half out, back pike, half out tuck, back pike, Bernie pike, back pike, Bernie straight, back pike. And then we'll start to fill in, and they might do the same thing, except they'll end with the double leg, but keep everything else back pikes. And then once they have the strength of that, they'll fill in a double back tuck. And this is just a training routine, training purposes that will never, obviously you can't compete multiple back pikes, right?
And
but this is just a way I'll teach
the
routine.
I do these as well, but I call it forward skeleton from the routine that they're doing. So I don't tell them is the routine. I just call them, okay, well, today we're going to do forward skeleton. And this is the forward skeleton that they need to do from their routine already, right? So they use the forward skills and with back pike or back straight or back tuck, whatever.
Right. And at this point, right, you can throw in from the front skeleton. And again, it's not a routine I tell them they're going to compete or do. It's just a way to learn the routine, right?
Absolutely,
so once they have the Rudy out pike, back pike, and maybe the connection's not so good, they hit it maybe, I don't know, 50 to 75% of the time, neatly. So, but they want to try the next step, right? So this would be the next step. Maybe that Rudy out pike, they lose height sometimes, and sometimes they'll do that Rudy out pike, back pike, and then chuck the half out down because, because all of their energy, their mental energy was on that Rudy out, and they finally finished it. And now, like, it's like poof, all of their energy and their mental capacity is gone, and they just chuck the half out, right? So that would be a good interim step. And then we get to I think this is the same exact routine.
I think it's the same.
And then you probably have the same thing in your gym. You didn't write down though. This double leg can start to be substituted for half tuck, possibly, depending on how fast they learn.
I think I put that on the next routine. I think I put that on the next routine. I don't remember, to be honest, but I think it goes from double pike to double A or half. I think.
And so, yes, yeah, I think it did, if I remember correctly. And basically why I put these in parentheses here is just to show where the next step is going to be. So the routine's almost exactly the same, right? You just can plug in the double back pike or plug in the half,
correct,
right? And if you do plug that double back pike
I don't remember, we can go back to the routines, but I don't remember when I put a double A at the end, if I put the double back pike right away there, or if I do that later, but it doesn't matter. Whenever we switch, we can see
here. Oh, you did have it at the beginning. So this first routine, you have double back.
Correct. Pike. And then whenever I put the pike up, then the half goes to the end. Yep.
So my question is, the previous routine that they were doing was half out double back, and ending double A. So how come you went back to the double back pike?
Because, and this is. Whenever with the introduction of the Rudy out, I think the 4 doubles, it's too much for them, just like you have on yours. So I put 3 doubles, and honestly, that double pike can be double A as it can be half right away if they're good ready for the half. That doesn't really matter, to be honest. I guess when I update that routine from that little mistake that it has over there, I'll add double A, because that can easily be double A as well. It doesn't matter.
And honestly, that double back pike is going to be going 6th here anyway, right? So that you're going to have to put double A last or half at
or
the
half
end, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So.
And I'll put the double A there as well. Like I have on the other routines, I have options. I'll put double A over there as well as the half because it makes total sense.
However, right, if that's for progression purposes, right? That leave that double back pike out because it's going to be going 6th in the next routine, right? However, if this is the routine that this athlete might be competing for a couple months and their double back pike is better than their double A, right? And then at that time you want to optimize the score, right? And
Correct.
All of this that we're going through these routines, it's all a juggle of the athlete and the time of the season, right? Because you want to progress them to the next routine, but you also want to if they're coming up and they want to qualify for nationals and they're double back, they're having troubles over rotating because they have too much hips on their double A, then stick the double back pike there, right?
And I think this is important to remember one more time, that when they get to this level here, it's very individualized, because it really depends on what skills they have and what can we use, right? Their development here it starts to separate. It's impossible to have one routine that everyone does the same. It's literally
Yeah.
impossible. You know, there needs to be more options for people to, okay, I can't do half. Let's do double A. Can't do double A. Let's do double pike. Okay, but then the double pike can't go there, so we need to do a little bit less
Right.
TD. So it's very important to have options. Options.
Absolutely. I think, and if we didn't have options, trampoline would be boring. We'd all be doing the same routine, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So let me ask you a question. What are your thoughts when, and I see this more and more all the time, and it's crazy to me because I don't think my athletes have the capability of doing. I mean, probably they would if I would focus on it. But I see athletes competing half pike and half tuck in the routine, only with a half out pike. All right. And the athletes are learning so many back skills before front skills, right? They have double tuck, double pike, double A, half tuck, and half pike, and they only have half out tuck and half out pike. Why do you think
What
that is?
about
And what do you
what about athletes doing full without doing half-halves and things like that?
Well, that's another can of worms, right? What are your? I mean, because honestly, I don't think it's a terrible thing that maybe the athlete has half before Rudy out, right? But if the athlete has half tuck and half pike and no Rudy outs, then I think maybe
I
there might be
just
something.
I
What are your
think it
thoughts? How do
comes
you
a
feel about
little
it?
bit. I think it comes a little bit about what we talk about the full branding. Okay. Yes, I disagree that they should have half-halves before Rudyard. But is it really the worst thing on the planet? It's not, as long as we teach this, but we don't forget the other ones. And we have to
Right.
go back there eventually, right? Now, if we teach the half-halves, tuck and pike, and then we totally disregard the Rudyards or the full brandies, then we're not balancing them, are we? So we're going to end up doing a routine like German Knichev with 7 forward skills, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Well,
impossible,
hopefully
right?
pulling Randy out, right?
Right, exactly like he did. But again, he was Russian with a different mindset than what we have, and mainly a different mindset of what the judges are expecting now, because the judges expect a certain level of music when we see a routine, right? Whenever it starts to that music to go a little bit more rock, then it starts getting a little bit more fuzzy the scores, right? So
Right.
I think it's important to have that momentum doing a routine: forward skill, backward skill, forward skill, backward skill, right? If it doesn't, it needs to look really good, otherwise it's going to
Right.
be not to your benefit. Simple as that. Now, if we don't balance the athlete with forward and backward skills at the same time, then we're not getting them ready for their future. Simple as that. Now, if they start
When you
half-halves
say
first
forwards and
before
backwards
Rudyard,
skills, are you talking about in a routine or when they're learning?
both, and then in the
Yeah.
routine. Right, when they're learning and in the routine, because the judges only see the routines, the judges don't see what
Right.
they're learning, right? So that in the routine is the most important thing. Now, I don't disagree that in training, for example, like we do forward skeletons that you showed, they could have backward skeletons just with backward skills. Totally fine. We do it as well. I know that you do it. You didn't wrote it down probably, but I know that you do it and I do it, right? But whenever we build a routine to compete, forward and backward skills, right? Balance. We need an athlete that is balanced. We always listen to this our entire lives, right? As long as you have a balanced life, you will live longer, right? If you go to extremes, if you only drink Coke, you're gonna die faster. Your body's gonna start complaining,
And
right?
if
If you
you
only do
only
this,
use Apple, what will happen?
then you'll be extremely happy.
Ah,
Then you'll be extremely happy
okay.
because everything works together. Because Apple has backward skills and forward
Yeah,
skills
right.
connected. Yep.
So, but this is, and I try to like look, from an outside view. Are we biased to front skills, or like we're teaching the Rudy outs before the half-halves,
Well,
and if you look at it this way, right, you teach a zero twist and then a half twist and then a full twist and a 1.5, right? So a half is a full twisting double back, right? And it's Arabian, pretty much half out, and they're very familiar with it. And I think the argument to my own point would be that Arabian is really difficult to teach perfectly, and it takes a long time to master, right?
that's what I was gonna say, and this is where and I have different views on this because I came from a country that teaches full differently. Okay, so let's break down this a little bit, right? So I try to teach the Rudyard and the half at the same time. But like you just said, that Arabian is much harder to get done and how we need it for the half. So they usually tend to get the Rudyards faster than the half. That's point number one, right? But for example, in Portugal, when I left, the technique that they teach fulls, it's through Arabian Breni. So they learn the full later because, like you said, it's much harder to actually do that Arabian flawlessly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they have a big advantage whenever they want to start half-halves that Arabian is already worked on, which
Right.
I don't use right now, and I know no one, or not no one, but most people here don't use. They start the full with the back straight with a half turn. They teach the full,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have to start the Arabian from the beginning whenever we want to go to half-halves, right? So it's two different paths that go lead to the same way. But the reason is our requirements for our program require a full really, really early. So if I'm going to teach the full through the Arabian, my kids are not going to be ready with the age that I want them to do that level because they can't do a full. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Right? So, but in the end, the Arabian, like you said, is one of the hardest thing to do. One of the hardest thing to do. And that's probably the reason why the
One of
half
the
takes
hardest things to
longer.
do well. Let's rephrase that, because I can see people
Well.
going around
Yes.
around the side and throwing it.
Yes. One of the hardest things to do well.
That concludes our conversation on trampoline routine composition for today. We hope you enjoyed learning how we build the next step of routines and how we plan the next step. And we would love to keep the conversation going because we know all of you coaches make routines and we want to hear what you do and why. So why don't you let us know by commenting below. You can shoot us an email. It's trampolineinsight@gmail.com. You can reach us on social media on Twitter @trampinsight or on Instagram @trampolineinsight. You can also send us a voice message with questions or opinions by following the link in the episode description, and we'll play it on the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We can't wait to see you on the next episode, and look out for part 3 of routine composition, where hopefully we're going to take it from the lower elite level all the way to senior elite.
Bye, guys. See you soon.